I'll be honest, I did not used to enjoy alone time. In fact, the thought of being alone with my thoughts terrified me. I avoided it at all costs. I was always either surrounding myself with friends or distracting myself with my phone or Netflix. I was never just actually by myself in stillness. Reflecting back, I realized it was because A, I didn't really like myself, B, I was avoiding really getting to know myself, and C, I was afraid of the truth that was going to come up. I was afraid of that inner dialogue that would surface if I spent time alone. And since I never really took that time to get to know myself through spending time alone, I honestly ended up on a path in my early 20s that felt really misaligned. I found myself feeling unfulfilled in a corporate accounting career just because people told me it was stable and it was the financially secure path that other people were taking. I was constantly feeling insecure because I was putting all of my self-worth and self-love in external validation because I didn't actually like who I was. I was constantly agreeing to social plans that I didn't really want to go to just because I wanted that person to like me and I wanted to feel validated by my friends. Or I'd feel basic and boring because I didn't really have any unique interests or hobbies or things that I was actually even excited about. But now I can honestly say that spending time alone is one of my favorite things to do. And not only do I no longer avoid it, but I literally factor it into my schedule. I often prefer to spend time alone than be social a lot of the time. And I'm 100% certain that the alignment that I now feel in my life is because of all of this time that I've prioritized spending by myself, establishing that relationship with myself. So today I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to share with you the importance and necessity of alone time. And before you exit out of this video, if you're someone who says, alone time's not for me, or yeah, I've never been good at spending time alone, or that seems terrifying, I can promise you that you are in the majority. I can also promise you that you probably need this episode the most. On the other side of that discomfort, on the other side of that scariness is a lot of what you're looking for in this life, is that true fulfillment that you're actually looking for. So 2 big reasons we're going to dive into here. First one, it's the only way to find those answers and truths that you're looking for. It can be extremely overwhelming trying to figure out what path to take in life, trying to figure out what the right answer is. We're constantly looking at how everyone else is living their lives. We're constantly internalizing the opinions of others, and we're internalizing what they're projecting onto us. We're constantly labeling things right, wrong, should, shouldn't because of society's standards that we've just absorbed all of our lives. What's the right answer? What is our truth? You want to know the crazy thing though? The truth is, we already have all the answers. We already have the answers that we're looking for. Okay, personal example here. When I was leaving my first job in public accounting, I knew that I wanted to make a change. I knew that it felt misaligned. In going through reflection and figuring out what I loved and didn't love, I knew accounting and finance wasn't it. But in my job search process and speaking to recruiters and speaking to family and friends, people in the industry who made similar pivots, I essentially talked myself back into staying in the industry because of all the external things that I was absorbing and internalizing. People were telling me, oh, you'd be dumb not to take that opportunity, or oh my God, what a great company. Like just stay in the industry and go work for that great company. Or you'd really take a big pay cut if you tried something different. Like you should probably just stay. Like, oh, it's going to be too hard to make a change. You got to just stay in the realm that you're in now. I was looking at what other people are doing. I was internalizing their projections and their opinions. And so what ended up happening was I went against my own inner voice and my own inner knowing from spending time by myself, getting those answers that I knew were true to me. And I went against it because I chose to listen to the external opinions instead. And guess what? I stayed in accounting. And guess what? I still didn't love it, because I chose to not listen to those answers that come up. So whatever it is that you want the answer to, whatever it is you're seeking guidance on, whatever path you're trying to navigate ahead of you in your life right now, you already know the answer. So how can you tune into that knowledge? You guessed it, spending time alone. Spending time in solitude is truly the only way to tap into your inner knowing, to your inner self. It's only in slowing down and actually spending time to get to know ourselves and allow that inner voice, that inner dialogue to come up. Can we know the path that's meant for us? Can we know what actually is right for us? Can we find those answers? But the more that we avoid spending that time in solitude, the more we avoid getting to know ourselves and spending time alone, the more we're just going to confuse external voices with our internal dialogue. The less clear those answers are going to be because we're constantly just absorbing and internalizing all of the opinions from around us. So how are we supposed to distinguish our own inner truth, our own knowing that's always right, from all of the opinions on the outside world? All the opinions your friends and family are projecting onto you. It's all going to get mishmashed and you're not going to be able to distinguish what you truly know is best from what they're telling you out there. So the answer is to spend time alone so you can allow that inner voice to come up and strengthen that inner voice and that inner knowing. And that voice is always going to guide you down the right path. So reflecting on the example that I just shared about my career, if I took more time to spend in solitude, to understand my truth and come to terms with it, I could have acted on it. I could have stuck to that. But from this experience, I've really gotten to understand what that inner voice and what that inner truth feels like. And I'm constantly learning to never go against that truth and that inner voice because I always regret it. And I know that that truth is always right. And the best way, again, to tune into that, the only way to tune into that is to spend time alone. Okay, second reason why spending time alone is so necessary and important. It's the only way to truly love yourself. Hear me out. The biggest reason people are scared to spend time alone is they don't like who they are. If that hit home for you, you know that's true. Or you know of people in your life who you can see that very clearly with. It's a sign of lack of self-love, of lack of self-worth. If we can't be alone with ourselves, what is that saying about how we feel about ourselves? Honestly, thinking back to that younger version of myself, that one who was always avoiding being alone at all costs, I was definitely insecure. I definitely sought all of my self-worth through external validation. I was always looking for validation from my parents, my friends, coaches, teachers, and unless they gave me that validation, I didn't feel good about who I was. And it was a big reason why I didn't want to spend time alone if I didn't have my phone or Netflix or if I didn't have people around, because that inner dialogue that would come up was not a nice one. It was pointing out all of my flaws. It was revealing how I actually felt about myself. And yeah, it's really uncomfortable to experience that. And why would we want that inner dialogue to come up? Why don't we just numb it and constantly avoid spending time alone so we never have to hear it? Because then we're never going to be able to cultivate that self-love. So by prioritizing every other relationship in my life above the one with myself, I was essentially saying to myself that I valued every other person over myself. And I was saying that the opinions of everyone else in my life mattered far more than my own, that I needed their validation and their opinion to feel good about myself. And beyond loving myself, I honestly don't even think I knew who I was or really liked myself or liked who I was. Because think about it, if spending time alone or the thought of spending time alone makes you feel bored, you're thinking like, oh, I'm not interesting enough to spend time by myself. Like that sounds boring. You're essentially saying you don't think you're interesting. You don't like who you are. Think about it this way. Think about if a friend was constantly saying that they don't want to spend alone time with you. They always need a third person around, or they always brushed off your opinion. It didn't really matter. It didn't hold any weight. They always took the advice of other friends instead of your own. They were constantly proving to you that they didn't trust you and didn't really value you as a friend. By never spending time alone and by not valuing that alone time and by not appreciating ourselves in solitude, we are essentially doing that to ourselves. We are sending those messages to ourselves about how we feel about ourselves. And crazy thing is, the biggest reason why many of us don't want to spend time alone is a lack of self-love and self-worth. But the only way to overcome that and to nurture that love for yourself is to spend time alone. So it's equally the biggest thing holding you back from alone time, but also the one thing that is going to allow you to cultivate that self-love and to actually start to enjoy spending time alone. So it's the biggest barrier and the only fix, ironically. But again, of course, a big point of resistance, a big hesitation to spend time alone is not wanting to hear that inner dialogue that comes up, not wanting to know that truth about how we feel about ourselves. But think of this example. Think about when you're dating someone. In the beginning, it does feel uncomfortable. It is kind of scary and nerve-wracking. You have your guard up a little bit because you're not really sure how it's going to go. You're getting to know the person. But as you spend more and more time with that person, you get to know all of their traits, good and bad. And even though they're not perfect, even though they have their flaws, you learn to love them. And that's what building a relationship is. And guess what? It's the exact same with ourselves. Just like our partner when we're dating someone, you're not going to be perfect. There are going to be things that come up that you might not love, but you learn to love them because that's what establishing self-love is. And yeah, there is an alternative of constantly avoiding being alone and constantly drowning yourself in distraction or constantly making sure at least one other person is around so you don't have to be alone with your thoughts. But where is that alternative route going to lead? Constantly chasing external validation. So honestly, never really feeling good about who you are unless you're getting that validation from the external, from people in your life, and then feeling pretty bad about yourself when you don't. But by spending time alone, by cultivating that self-love and really working on establishing that relationship with ourselves, we don't have to rely on other people to make us feel good because we can honestly be so content and at peace with who we are and enjoy our own company without needing to rely on other people, without needing to rely on their company or words of external validation, because we're just comfortable with who we are. We've started to grow that self-love. and get to know ourselves and appreciate all of our great qualities. And yeah, again, it's probably going to be uncomfortable, but in a whole nother episode in this Solitude series, I'm going to dive into how we can spend time in solitude, how to embrace that discomfort, and how I've successfully been able to learn how to enjoy and love spending time alone. And I'm telling you, once we truly get to know ourselves and get to love ourselves and love spending time alone, every other aspect of our lives gets so much better because we see everything in our life as a projection of how we feel internally. So if we're feeling like we really don't feel worthy, if we don't love who we are, if we don't feel at peace with ourselves, we're probably not going to feel at peace with everything else in our life. But if we really love who we are, if we cultivate that sense of self-worth through spending time alone, then we can project that onto everything in our lives, and everything is going to feel a lot more fulfilling. It's going to feel a lot more aligned because we have that inner alignment and that inner contentness with ourselves. And the best part is no one else can take this journey for you. It's literally just a product of you and yourself going on dates, spending time alone. Again, we're going to dive into how in later episodes, but the rewards on the other side of this discomfort, on the other side of this journey, on the other side of solitude and spending time alone are so great. And I promise you it will come with a lot of alignment in your life. If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to press subscribe wherever you are listening for more realistic and relatable inspiration to live a more fulfilling life.